you very much, everybody, for coming along and talking to us today. This is a question for Professor Coombs. You mentioned that you are refraining for the moment... sorry, my name's Rani Singh, I'm a journalist. You're refraining for the moment from opening up a campus in India, and you referred to some daunting aspects. So would you like to go into those for us, please?
I should say that the principal reason that we're not doing that at the moment is that we're not doing it anywhere, either in India or China or anywhere. And that's because over the next 8 years, I'm spending £1 billion on my own campus in the centre of Manchester, and we've just raised a £300 million bond as part of the financing strategy for that. We've already spent £700 million in the last 6 or 7 years. So when you're engaged in that level of infrastructure investment in your primary campus, and given that we have another line of business, if you like, which is the transnational education business through an MBS worldwide type model, which I think will generalise across the whole university in due course, I think therefore that, and given that we're a very large university, and we're in a very well-known and dynamic city, actually, strategically, it's much less important for the University of Manchester to open a campus anywhere else in the world than it might be for some other universities who are not so well placed as we are. So it's not an Indian issue in that sense.
Can I just come in here, though, just to say that there is an issue with having campuses in India, or there has been, and as Rod said, there's been new ways of looking at the legislation to make it less risky. But I think I've been asked quite often, why don't more universities open up campuses overseas? And the reason is it's a really, really risky business wherever you try to set one up. It's a long-term aim. They don't make money. They're very difficult to maintain. The ratio of having staff, from the UK campus and the local campus is difficult to maintain. So to do it, you've got to have the whole institution behind you, and you've got to be in it for the long term. And to do, institutions are very big places, and it takes a long time to get a university and its council round to the idea that this is a good thing to do. So, they're not like businesses. They can't react very quickly to opportunities and just get in there. There are some interesting models, though. I think there are a few private companies that provide the infrastructure, the buildings, the risk, and then invite institutions to come in and offer the academic courses. That's, in a way, a classic capacity building exercise where that's done until that country is able to run their own universities and say, thank you very much, job well done, and we'll move on now and do it ourselves. And I think that's been quite a successful model.
First of all, I think you've pinpointed some of the difficulties and reasons, but there are some far more fundamental points. First of all, many universities, and I include my own, Cambridge, which is somewhere near the top of that Shanghai League, and we have an awful job running our own ship, or even managing this university, managing its finances, managing to maintain somehow, by our fingertips, we seem to be clinging on to excellence. The notion that we have the capacity to set up a campus overseas is mind-boggling. This notion, we will get them, and eventually, like Macaulay said, through kindergarten, secondary school, universities, and then we'll step out when you've built up the capacity overseas, is a fantasy. The relationship between Britain and India, Britain anywhere else in the world, is not that. There are huge systemic problems with higher education in this country, its finance, its own capacity, getting proper recruits. So the notion that Britain is well placed to go and build universities in India which will transform the scene are, as Salisbury said, dreams, dreams, and dreams. Secondly, and this point I want to make, any university like Cambridge or Manchester, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, higher education is not an easily financially self-sustaining business. It can usually be a sink into which you pour money. Harvard has 9 billion endowment. Cambridge has maybe a third of that. I don't know what Manchester has, but we are all short of funds. Mahathir asked me to set up a university in Malaysia, and he said, Anil, we want a Cambridge in Malaysia. He said, well, what do you need? It isn't the old answer, 800 years of mowing the lawn. What you need is an entire town, be it Oxford or Cambridge, the profits of which are sunk into maintaining a university. So I said, build a new town, have the profit uplift coming into it. It cannot be done by fees, 3,000 charged here or there. You're not going to get a top university on that basis. So basically, some of the premises of this discussion are false.
Well, on that controversial note, I see there's a question over here.
The name is Anandalingam. I'm sure, Professor Seal, you don't remember me, but we used to drink a lot at the Trinity College bar when I was a student there. Anyway, I'm a really new dean of the business school at Imperial College. So right. I still maintain the imperial part of what you thought that Britain had lost. Let me have two observations. First of all of you are very polite, because the fact of the matter is that starting a university in India is a daunting task. I think that it would have been nice to have had somebody from the Indian higher education system on this panel, because the aspiration of India is really to educate, as you said, millions of people, and they have done all these calculations, and in India they're very good at doing math, and they know that they need to start 3,000 new universities. They know that. They don't have the money, as one of you said.
Sorry, can we keep it brief? Because there's other
So
questions.
the point is that there are lots and lots of difficulties in starting universities in India as well, because the Imperial College has started a campus in Singapore, a medical campus. There are difficulties there too, but nevertheless, the regulations are much, much less. So it will be nice for somebody in the audience to tell us about what are the real difficulties in starting campuses in India, and not so much that all the things about it being difficult to do things here, therefore we should not even try.
Okay, Joanna, would you like to start on that one?
What was the question? Sorry.
The difficulties of starting a campus in India.
Yeah, I thought we'd covered that actually in the last one. I mean, yes, there are, and I take it's much easier to do them elsewhere. But I would make the point that that UK institutions that do want to get involved are usually because they've been talking to either the Indian government or partners where they have specific skills or research interests that match. There is no question that any one country could help solve India's demand problems, and there was never any suggestion that there was. I think it's more about matching the particular research and teaching strengths that our institutions have with helping to build that capacity in India.
Well, Anil Agarwal, as you know, wanted to set up a university in Orissa, and his Sterling Foundation set aside $1 billion, and he said we want within 10 years to have as many Nobel Prizes as, say, my college, which boasts of having more than Nobel Prize winners than France. And when I look around among my colleagues, I think France must be a very untalented country. But leaving that aside, 5 years down the line, not a sod has been turned in this university, despite there being money, despite there being ambitions. As our panel have said, the regulatory regime, civil and co, have not yet allowed foreign universities to come in. So it isn't a question, as in Nottingham in Malaysia, or Imperial in Singapore, in Thailand. I mean, I've been involved in these discussions, and that isn't, as you rightly say, the answer. And I wanted to suggest in my talk there's a different answer. And that is, there is a quality deflation throughout the Indian educational system. What this country is good at, take one example. There are 300,000 engineers that come out each year in India. 30,000 of them have qualifications that employers can rely upon. 270,000 don't. The Royal Academy of Engineering here, our main engineering schools in Manchester and things, if we begin to have a way of accrediting the degrees of Indian universities, as with competence in English or in any other subjects by internationally benchmarked standards, this is probably the biggest contribution that this country can make.
I would agree with that. I think there's a lot in that. There's one of the big problems at the moment that we've been discussing with MHRD is the fact that the one-year masters in the UK is not recognised, and yet it's recognised in international treaties, the Bologna Treaty, I think the Atlantic Treaty, and that means that students going back to India with an MA cannot go on and do a PhD in the Indian system. So that's just one small example, but actually I think that's a very good suggestion more generally.
Can I just suggest an additional third approach, which I think, because I think the overseas campus thing is clearly, even if it was solved theoretically in the next couple of years through the political process, in practical terms, it would still take years before you would add a major amount to the capacity of the Indian education system by other universities building stuff there. The accreditation route is a different model, which may be helpful. What we have done and other universities have done in other countries is models like the 2+2 route. So, for example, in China, there's a university which specialises in electrical engineering, and it produces most of the electrical engineers in China. They are the people who are building the Chinese national grid. They spend 2 years in their own university and 2 years in Manchester, and they have a degree with an agreed syllabus, which is part of a Manchester and a Chinese university's syllabus. So it's not quite accreditation, it's something which is a kind of hybrid of the students travelling and the accreditation process. It works very well. Those students do PhDs in Manchester and PhDs in China, and they are also creating very strong links at the trade level between the electrical engineering industries of China and the UK. So I think there are other kinds of models that you can use, which they're not completely regulation-free, but they're a bit less burdensome to put together than some of the other models that we've been discussing.
Okay, and we've got one more question, which we're going to have to be really brief on, because we're very much overrunning now, and I'm conscious lunch will be cooling.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Yes? Yes. A question for Dr. Newman. I wanted to know, I'm Lydia Khan, and I'm on the global faculty for IMD Business School's #1 executive education program called High Performance Leadership. I'm also on the faculty for Barclays Bank and their new cultures and values. I wanted to ask if Universities UK has an awareness about the disruption of the entire education system, especially at the higher education level. 2 of the major disruptors are Indian in origin, Khan Academy, and then the second one is Barefoot University, something started by Bunker Roy, and obviously the third pillar of that is going to be the MOOCs. Sure. And is UK University looking at the fact that to maybe reach out to India, it might be to ask India what they can give to the UK system?
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. Khan Academy, Coursera, I'm a bit mooked out, frankly, because really we're talking about an era of experimentation with new technology that allows online learning to reach thousands more people. What I've understood from it so far is it's fantastic presentations, great content, thousands of people using it for continuing education. I think MOOCs will have arrived for capacity building and university education when there are blended versions that allow the students some real-time experience as well as the online delivery in a cost-effective way that probably includes accreditation, because all universities are exploring. The UK has FutureLearn. They're all exploring different ways of using this technology, and it's certainly going to play a very big part in our futures. But whether Sir Michael Barber of Pearson's right, that it's an avalanche and all all you'll see of universities in 20 years' time is dust, because everyone's going to be sitting in their own Starbucks with their tablet joining the global community, is something that I frankly don't believe in, because I believe in the experience of education, and I would hope that graduates in whichever country they go to have the experience of face-to-face learning and learning with other people, as well as the online opportunities that are undoubtedly on our doorstep.
Thank you. Final comment.
Just to add a final comment to that. As the chair said, I did used to be a professor of technology management, which means I have studied technical change. Most predictions of one technology substituting for another are wrong. Most technologies turn out to be complementary rather than substitutes. So, for example, it's still the case, despite all of the difficulties, that online and paper versions of newspapers find quite satisfactory ways of synergizing with each other as business models rather than displacing each other. That's what's going to happen with MOOCs and the other traditional ways of presenting higher education. The market will segment, as markets always do, and some people will consume only MOOCs, and some people will consume only high-end Cambridge tutorials, and some people will consume hybrids of those things and all the things in between. But I think that there will be a predominance in the centre, which will be, as Joanna suggests, new ways of hybridising face-to-face learning with internet-mediated learning. And actually that provides all of us with lots and lots of opportunities, I think. And I really don't think it will necessarily change the kind of economic balance of power very much between different providers, because I think there'll be all sorts of interesting acquisition and consolidation processes driven by the different IP assets that we have. So channels will in the end be less important than IP.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much to the panel for the contributions, and thanks to the floor. And it's lunch now. I'm not sure what the arrangements are.
We eat.
So, yeah, I mean, outside? Okay, that's fine then. So, reconvene
10 minutes for each course.
Absolutely, absolutely. Reconvene at 2, I believe. Thank you.